Elon and Neuralink have achieved incredible results in two successful trials of implanting chips into human brains, which has led to a more positive view of this technology. The first two patients have been able to do things they never could before, which seems almost unbelievable. However, that doesn't mean that people have stopped criticizing the company altogether. In fact, every time reports come out about what's happening inside the labs, there's also a big wave of backlash against Neuralink. Why are people so furious about the Neuralink Lab? What's inside? Welcome to Tesla Car World. So people tend to typically fear and doubt new technologies, especially when we're talking human health. It gets even scarier when something's being implanted into the body. In this case, we're talking about a chip, 23 by 8 millimeters in size, being inserted into one of the most sensitive parts of the human body, the brain. The truth is, the risk of death or infection is higher with any other invasive procedure, and the human body has its own mechanisms to reject foreign objects, especially ones that are made out of metal. That's why Neuralink has faced mixed opinions from the very beginning. However, that's not the main reason why Neuralink is so controversial. Brain-computer interface technology has actually been around for quite some time, and earlier versions were even more dangerous than Neuralink's. For instance, the Utah Array, a less durable and advanced implant, posed greater risks. The real issue behind the criticism is what happens inside Neuralink's lab, where over 1,500 animals have been used for testing. Allegations suggest that most of them died in severe conditions, many not intact. So, what's really happening inside Neuralink's lab? We actually know very little about what happens inside their testing facilities, and it's arguably Elon's most secretive company. Elon co-founded it with a team of 7 scientists and engineers in 2016. Right now, it's headquartered in Fremont, California, but earlier this year, Reuters reported that Neuralink changed its location of incorporation from Delaware to Nevada. Neuralink was first publicly reported in March of 2017. Since then, the company has hired many prominent neuroscientists from different universities. In 2019, Neuralink received $158 million in seed funding, $100 million which came from Musk himself. In the early stages, the whole team at the company devoted all their efforts to speeding up the completion of its first product, a chip called N1 telepathy. Simply put, this chip is about the size of a coin and contains 64 ultra-thin threads, which are thinner than human hair. These threads are implanted at various points in the brain tissue, reaching a depth of about 3 to 5 millimeters. The chip is battery-powered and charges wirelessly. However, after completing the prototype, Neuralink did not rush into human trials. They first needed to demonstrate that the device was safe and carried no risk when implanted into a living organism, a crucial condition for getting FDA approval. The truth is, right after the company finished making the N1 implant device, the chip will go through a technical testing process first. Neuralink's team will see how well it works, its battery, and the signal transmission speed through the threads. Everything has to function perfectly. If the chip has any issues or isn't performing well, it'll go back to the redesign phase for adjustments until it meets the company's standards. Most people probably think that if the chip works okay, it'll be tested on animals right away, but that's not the case. Neuralink never conducts tests on live animals without going through a strict evaluation process. To ensure everything is done correctly, they've developed an artificial brain model to test the implantation process. These artificial brain cells are designed to mimic the structures and characteristics of a human brain as closely as possible. From what we know, they initially used jelly-like brain cells, but to improve the testing effectiveness, Neuralink switched to a complex hydrogel sample that simulates actual brain tissue. They ran multiple tests with implantation robots until the robots could place the fibers in the right spots within this artificial brain tissue, but they didn't stop there. Neuralink also conducts accelerated lifespan tests by placing the device in a brain simulation environment to assess its durability over time, including factors like humidity, battery life, and the internal systems of the device. This entire process helps ensure that when the device is implanted into a human brain, it meets the highest safety standards. After testing on brain models, the company will move on to implanting it into different types of animals and then monitoring them. This is exactly what sparked most of the controversy within Neuralink's facilities. Specifically, Neuralink's lab conducted experiments on 1,500 animals, and there have been reports claiming that they were brutally tortured while the company tried to implant the chips into their bodies. More specifically, animal testing was conducted to push Elon's project closer to human brain implementation, and that was pretty much unavoidable. However, we've seen some reports saying that they drilled holes into monkeys' heads, and surgeons used an unapproved adhesive to fill in the gaps in the animals' skulls. Documents from the University of California, which collaborated with Neuralink on the trials from 2017 to 20, indicate that surgeries were performed on the skulls of these monkeys up to 10 times before they eventually collapsed. The records also allege that surgeons drilled into their heads and implanted components into their brains, but they didn't fit properly, which meant they came out, causing the animal a lot of pain due to brain hemorrhaging. Reports revealed that some monkeys had parts of their limbs amputated and were crumbling after suffering from constant vomiting and diarrhea. There were also a few cases of animals developing chronic infections like staph while the implants were in their heads. Some animals even started pulling out their own fur and harming themselves, which is a clear sign of really poor mental health in the test subjects and is quite common among monkeys. The reports also indicated that the monkeys endured extreme suffering during a process of being systematically disregarded in terms of life. It's been claimed that since the initial experiments, over 1,500 animals have been killed, including more than 280 sheep, pig, and monkeys. Reuters identified 4 experiments involving 86 pigs and 2 monkeys that went off track due to staph error, requiring those experiments to get repeated. However, Elon repeatedly denied these rumors on X, stating that no monkey has died or been seriously injured by a Neuralink device. We don't know if Elon's hiding this info or not, but Nolan Arbaugh, Neuralink's first patient, also explained what happened to the animals after they were tested. No one emphasized that the animals, in this case monkeys, ultimately ended up being killed after these studies. Regarding this, Nolan Arbaugh stated that the companies have to euthanize the animals, referring to it as the sacrifice. This sacrifice sometimes happens right after the experiments, and other times after a short or long-term period. It's done to study the changes of the experiment on the animals' bodies and the extent of any changes, so it's quite possible that the report of 1,500 animal deaths is accurate. We always appreciate Neuralink's successes and humanitarian goals of this technology. But if it comes at the cost of thousands of animals, that's something we can't support. The truth is, not that just Neuralink, but all medical research has had to conduct tests on animals. Plus, since Neuralink involves brain-computer implant technology, it has to go through even more testing than other medical technologies. The issue is really the sheer number of animals involved in the experiments, which has sparked controversy. But where does the Neuralink implant procedure take place? The fact that the patients getting the chip implanted won't undergo the procedure at the company's testing facility. Instead, the surgeries for both the first and second patients are done at the Barrow Neurological Institute. Neuralink's research facility primarily focuses on testing the chip on animals, as well as developing, upgrading, and manufacturing specific technologies for the implantation process. So, how carefully was the Neuralink implant developed? You might think that besides the internally developed chip, Neuralink uses devices from other suppliers, but it's quite surprising that all equipment like the chip, the R1 surgical robot, and specialized computer systems is made in-house. This means that instead of using off-the-shelf parts, the company is developing a specialized internal process for making the components of the implantation procedure. Neuralink's goal is to ensure that no issues arise in the human body, and the Neuralink implant can function as reliably for at least 20 years inside the skull, so they don't take this step lightly. And they only trust the equipment that they make themselves. Similar to Tesla, most components in Elon's electric cars, like modules, motors, and even the whole interior, are made by Tesla themselves. The only exception is the battery pack, which is imported from China, but they're gradually ramping up production of their own 4680 battery packs for their vehicles. So in a way, Neuralink operates similarly to Tesla. Elon wants to ensure that they aren't dependent on external manufacturers. Now, we don't know too much about how Neuralink makes their chip, but we can see that a chip consists of several parts, like neural threads, microchips, a battery, and a seal. The electrodes inside the thread on the chip are made from a platinum iridium metal core and coated with a thin, non-reactive, biocompatible polymer. This means that they aren't easily detected and rejected by the human body. All these components are stacked and interconnected, resulting in a chip that is considered one of the safest in the BCI world today. Another crucial device that's just as important as the N1 chip is the surgical robot. It was naive for many people to think that the Neuralink chip is placed into a patient's brain by the hands of surgeons. In reality, the whole process is handled by a team of expert doctors, but that's not the case at all. You need to understand that human hands can get shaky when doing tasks that require precision. When it comes to inserting the chip's threads into a brain tissue, that's one of the biggest challenges even the best surgeons in the world might struggle with, because the threads are so tiny that they're hard to see, let alone put into the brain. That's why a specialized surgical robot was developed with the utmost dedication from the Neuralink team. The needle that the Neuralink robot uses to puncture brain tissue is made from a tungsten wire that's just 40 micrometers thick. The design of the needle tip is crucial because it needs to insert the wire into the cortex and then release it accurately before quickly retracting, kind of like a sewing machine. Neuralink spent the last 2 years rigorously testing this needle design. Even though patients might not be awake to see the machine in action, it's still quite important to design a robot that does not appear intimidating. That's why Neuralink's R1 surgical robot is pure white. It looks like a sewing machine with smooth curves and surfaces that give it a look of advanced engineering while also incorporating some softer, approachable elements. Neuralink's surgical robot can be divided into 3 main parts: the head, the body, and the base. The head of the robot is a helmet-like and actually holds the patient's head in place. It also includes a guide for the surgical needle, as well as embedded cameras and sensors to map the patient's brain. Additionally, there are disposable liners inside the helmet to ensure sterile surgery. The Neuralink robot also has a body, that humped rear assembly, which includes all the parts responsible for the motion of the robot as it sets up for the procedure. The third element is the base, which basically keeps the whole thing from tipping over, and apparently also contains the computing brains of the BrainBot itself. Does Neuralink really restore vision? Neuralink has received Breakthrough Device designation from the FDA for their second product, blindsight, which helps blind individuals regain some of their vision, even in cases of congenital blindness. We'll explain in the simplest terms how blindsight works and what this second product means for Neuralink. Elon announced it as the company's second project, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the second patient will be tested with it. Instead, we believe this will just be another version of the Neuralink chip, focusing more on the visual cortex compared to the N1 telepathy chip. Imagine a person who has never seen light suddenly waking up one day and being able to see many things, even if it's just really blurry initially. This would truly be a miracle. According to the WHO, about 50 million people across the world are blind. Listen to a clip cut from Neuralink member Dan Adams explaining how this blindsight works.
The output from a camera would be processed by an iPhone, for example, which would then stream the data to the device, and the image would be converted into a pattern of stimulation of the electrodes into visual cortex.
Dan explains that this device will use a camera, and the data from the camera will be processed through an iPhone before being transmitted to the Neuralink device, which converts the images into electrical pulses that stimulate the visual cortex. With this new generation of devices, there could be up to 32,000 points of light to create images for blind individuals. Elon also mentioned that this product would allow even those who are congenitally blind to see, starting with low-res vision but potentially improving to better than natural eyesight, and even allowing them to see wavelengths like infrared or ultraviolet. Oh my goodness! This clearly goes beyond the normal capabilities of a human, which is why Elon refers to Neuralink as a technology that gives human superpowers. From what we understand, blindsight will be a much more complex chip than telepathy because restoring vision's never been easy. Therefore, implanting this chip will use more advanced materials and designs compared to the other chip versions. Blindsight's chip will consist of 96 flexible threads, each having 32 electrodes, totaling 3,000 electrodes. These electrodes are designed to be biocompatible, reducing the likelihood of the body rejecting the implant. Although the potential of blindsight is extraordinary, it's essential to consider the challenges ahead. Vision, processed by the human brain, is not as simple as replicating an HD screen. The brain interprets visual stimuli through complex patterns of neural firing. Therefore, simply increasing the number of electrodes does not guarantee higher visual resolution. Research has shown that the relationship between stimulating specific neurons and the resulting visual perception is complex and not fully understood. Engineers often think that these electrodes create pixels, but in reality, the visual cortex operates in a much more sophisticated way. The current challenge lies not only in the number of electrodes, but also in our understanding of how neurons contribute to the perception of images and depth. With Neuralink's second product, blindsight, the team has reached a significant milestone in helping these individuals experience the world more fully. Neuralink announced on X that they've gotten Breakthrough Device designation from the FDA for blindsight. It's been over 10 months since the first patient, Nolan Arbaugh, received Neuralink, and there have been no health risks reported. On the contrary, Nolan's ability to control things via Neuralink is increasing, and if things continue on this path, he'll be able to do a whole range of new tasks he's always wanted to. And right now, he's trying to learn as many languages as possible, while also finishing up his college degree. Meanwhile, Alex, the second patient, has even managed to do many more tasks in a short time since getting his chip. He can design products in CAD software like Fusion 360. Alex is also recovering well health-wise. And another highlight from the implantation process is that the company hadn't observed any retraction of the threads in Alex's brain, which did happen initially with Nolan Arbaugh. So when it comes to the invasive technique and the chip design, for the second patient, this represents an improvement compared to the initial concerns from the first participant. This reflects the hard work and dedication of the Neuralink team and helps alleviate worries and criticisms about the risks of retraction with the chip's threads. If successful, the project could restore vision for millions of people who currently have no other viable solutions. However, it's important to maintain a cautious and objective perspective, fully aware of the scientific and ethical challenges that such a technology brings. Like any pioneering initiative, the journey ahead for blindsight will require testing, not just to ensure safety, but redefine the tech to perfection. If Neuralink can overcome this, the impact will extend beyond just restoring sight. It could also open up opportunities for enhancing human capabilities and deeper integration between biological and artificial systems. Most importantly, safety is paramount. We can hardly imagine the consequences for the company if any patients face health risks after getting their chip. Once safety is confirmed in human trials, scalability becomes the next focus. If the device proves to be safe, many people are going to want it, which means they'll need to provide the product in large quantities at affordable prices. This requires a very efficient manufacturing process. Elon also predicts that in the future, having Neuralink will become as normal as anything else. The project has the potential to reshape how we experience life, much like how the internet and mobile technology have revolutionized things. How do you feel about what happened in the Neuralink Lab? What do you think about animal testing? We'd be happy if you left your comments about this down low below the video, and we thank you for coming and joining us on today's episode of Tesla Car World. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Have a great day. Take care, stay safe, and God bless. Bye.